Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. You know, I want a little blood to the brain thing here. I'm Donna Maxey. I'm the founder director of Race Talks, and I am very excited that you are all here, and even more excited, well, almost, that the topic has come up for tonight. Marijuana is legal. Now what happens to those already in jail? And I'm sure they're excited that the topic is up too. So, we normally have a newcomers, just a sec. We normally have a newcomers orientation that we share. So the orientation is not up and working tonight, so we're gonna just go without it. And for those of you, how many of you, this is your first time here at Race Talks? All right, great, okay. Across the hall at the back door is the women's restroom. Across the hall at this door is the men's restroom. Those are the important rooms. Back there at the back, you can order food and drink. So all of those important things have been taken care of. We'd also like for you to know some of the things that we do here at Race Talks that are important. On the table there is a basket, and that basket holds several items, one of which is a brochure. Please take it with you. We have it written down that next week we're having a community police forum with Race Talks 2, but we are canceling that. We will not be having it, and we'll be rescheduling that in September. We want to make sure we have a big turnout and have lots of speakers. I'm coming to find out that July and August are not good months for holding public events, especially in a sun-starved rainforest. So, thank you to those people who got that. Those of you who did not get that was a joke. Shame on you. They've been in this rainforest too long, did not know that laughter was part of what goes on. So, anyway. This is a new brochure. There's some new things in there, so be sure to read it. Part of what's in the brochure that's really, really important are the ground rules for tonight, and those are on the back, and follow-up activities. Those follow-up activities are really, really important. We need to make sure that people are not just coming to hear a speaker, but going about making change in the community. And that's what Race Talks is about, is to give you a starter step toward making change in this world. So you'll be looking at those ground rules at your table. Also, this is the lifeblood of Race Talks, is this evaluation form. Please make sure you fill it out. I can't see you. Can you see me? Okay. I feel like, you know, gotta go like that. Anyway, this is the lifeblood. Please make sure you fill out an evaluation. Then that way we know what you think and what you're interested in Race Talks. Additionally, another piece of blood is the participant sign-in sheet. There's one at your table. Please make sure that you sign in. Even if you have signed in before, please do it again. Because things happen. So we want to make sure that you're on our sign-in list. And at your table, there are pens and half sheets of paper. Those are for the purpose of making sure that you can take notes if you want, if you can write down a question if you have, whatever it is you want to do that's important to you. So doodle, scribble, scrabble, whatever. And see these, you know, these little cards, there's little cards in there, and everybody looks at those and thinks, oh, those are cute. What are those little colored cards for? You know how you meet people and they always say, well, I would give you my card except I don't have one. Now you do. These are for business cards. And these are for you to share your name and address with other people. This is the only way we're going to change this world is relationship. And if you don't reach out and get to know people, then you're not going to establish relationship. And sitting across from somebody, breaking bread, and that's one of the things that makes Race Talks different, and one of the ground rules of Race Talks is that we like for people to break bread. And the reason we do is because if you don't do that, you get indigestion when you're being contentious. So this stops the whole thing of being contentious. You know, you're on your best behavior, you're eating food, you're drinking, you're feeling relaxed. Get a number, hook up for coffee, come back to McMiniman's. They give us this room for free. We'd love for you to come and patronize them so that they know that you appreciate being here. So please make sure that you fill these out and share it with several people. Lisa, who is back there at the back table, she's got a whole new set of friends having come to Race Talks. And we normally have a drawing, and we can have the drawing again tonight, except yours truly left the gift cards at home. So the thing is that what we want you to be doing is while you're sitting at your table, eyeball the people at your table and start sizing them up. And what you're looking for is somebody, number one, that you don't know, and preferably that is another ethnicity than you are. Now, you cannot just look at people and go, oh, this person is this ethnicity. You never know who you're looking at. And we do ask at every table that there are people of color so that when there is a discussion, we can have a full discussion. You cannot discuss race and only have white people sitting at a table. That does not work. Because that's like asking a man to be the head of the pregnancy foundation or something, you know. They can be empathetic, sympathetic, involved, all of those wonderful things, but they have no clue what it is really like up front on the front lines. So we like to make sure that there are people of color at every table. We talk about race, we call it out, and there's nothing to be ashamed about that. And so if you're a person of color and, you know, maybe there's some people who are going to out tonight. They don't identify that way. Maybe they're going to go, you know, I am a person of color. So that's great. We're talking about it. All right, so also we offer professional development units for teachers. Any teachers here? So you can get professional development units for your credential, to renew your credential. And we also have for attorneys. If there are any attorneys here, you can use them for the state bar. So go back and get a certificate and fill out the form. And next month, let's see, this is this month's. Next month we're doing one about the rise in hate crimes, Charlotte and beyond. So we will be talking about, is that my next one? No, I'm sorry. We're switching these around. We're doing some switcheroonies. Next month is called Unnatural Causes. And one of our speakers for next month is here, Leslie Gregory. Oops, come on Leslie, stand up. No, stand up Leslie, so they can see you. All right. Leslie is a physician's assistant and has some other highfalutin credentials. And we'll be talking about the issue of, no, I'm serious. She said, I said, send me your title, and she sent me all these initials. I was like, what the fuck? What was that? I don't even know where to start with all these letters. So she explained what they were, and she's very qualified. I knew she was, but I knew she has the credentials. So Leslie will be one of our speakers, and we're going to see, there's a couple of films. And these, you know, it's not a live speaker, but I think these films are going to blow your socks off. They are going to blow you away when you see the effects of racism on people's health. So Leslie will address that, and she works with that every day, up close and personal, the effects of poverty and racism. So, and looking to get another speaker to come and discuss it too. So that's next month, August 11th, I believe it is. Okay, got the get acquainted bonus thing. Oh, when I told you to be eyeballing people, it's worth 25 bucks. So the two of you get to get a $25 gift certificate and go to dinner at McMiniman's. Can't beat that. Okay. All right, so our speakers tonight are, our first speaker is Representative Lou Frederick. He has been in Oregon for 41 years and raised a family in the Irvington neighborhood. He's worked here as a teacher, television reporter, public information officer, and communications consultant. He's been elected 3 times in House District 43 in North and Northeast Portland. His focus has been on social justice in education, in public safety, and economic opportunity. With the passage of Measure 91, he saw an opportunity to address at least some of the lasting injustices of the war on drugs. When his own bill to reduce sentences and facilitate expunction, is that the word, Lou? Thank you. Expunction of records for past nonviolent marijuana offenses did not advance, he worked to get some of the same provisions included in the bill implementing Measure 91. And his legislative assistant, Sue Hagmeyer. Sue, where are you? That's the brains behind the operation. I'm telling you. Thank you very much, Sue. I mean, Lou is very bright. Now, come on now. Come on. How many women are married? How many of you women are married out here? This is a really small number. Okay, how many of you have been married before? Okay, that's a bigger number. Okay, so we know what's going on in relationships. I mean, I love men on a scale of 1 to 10, about a 12, but we know. Okay. Am I trying to pull my foot out of my mouth? Am I getting there yet?
No, you got the knee going in.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay, never mind. But I still love you, Lou. I still love you. Okay, One Man's Vision, this is Roy J. One Man's Vision in 2005 has helped thousands in the greater Portland area get a second chance to be productive citizens. Founders of Project Clean Slate, Roy J. has been the non-stop spark plug of working with thousands of people, regardless of their zip code, to help with removing barriers to employment, housing, and other opportunities. In partnership with the public and private sector, Jay and a meager staff has helped convert thousands of dollars in traffic fines into meaningful community service, paying of child support, expunging minor criminal convictions, and much more. The concept of Project Clean Slate has launched Project Second Chance, which is becoming a national model. Currently, Multnomah County is the only government that has this highly successful program. Jay and others are forging ahead for a national agenda to expand to other states by popular demand. So tonight, Representative Fredericks will speak first and talk about what the bill is about and the background that has gone into making that happen. And then Roy J. will talk about how that looks in reality in the public. I present to you Representative Lou Fredericks and Roy J. And he needs the mic, okay. And
I can talk this loud if you want me.
And we will go till about, we're gonna go a little bit longer than 8 o'clock. So, okay.
So they each have about 20-something.
Well, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm going to refer to a couple of notes that I have because in the Capitol, one of the things you do is you end up giving what we call floor speeches. It comes as you're trying to get everyone to vote for a particular bill. And one of the things you do is you put together a speech to just try to convince folks. Usually, it's not going to convince very many people who are there. They've already made their decision. But in a few cases, it has actually made a difference. And I was told that that part of my floor speech for this particular bill made a difference for a number of people. So that felt very good. It's pretty simple, the approach that I've taken. In my view, the war on drugs has devastated the community, especially devastated the black community. It has not been an equal distribution of what's happened there because we've filled prisons and broken up families over this drug. And it's been waged in communities of color to a far greater extent than it has been in communities of the dominant culture. I went to college in the early 70s, and it was a predominantly white community, predominantly white school. Pot was commonplace. But every time that marijuana has been studied, it's been found to be fairly evenly distributed across not just racial and ethnic boundaries, but also across economic circumstances. But every time incarceration for marijuana offenses has been studied, it's been shown to be drastically skewed towards communities of color and poor communities. In fact, and when all of the decision points are studied, from stops and searches through arrests and arraignments and on to convictions and sentences, poor people and people of color experience harsher outcomes at every step. This is something that we've seen, and it's really clear. There are lots of explanations that people give for it, but the fact is that large numbers of black or brown or poor citizens have been turned into criminals, while others have been toking up in safety for decades. And it's also the fact that these convictions don't just end right after somebody's served their sentence. They have, in fact, had to, it's devastated their educational experience, their housing, their jobs, every part about their lives. And let me put it another way. When you can't find, if you're a young, especially if you're a young black man, and you can't find a job, and you can't find housing, how do you find a family? How do you create a real stable environment? You can't do it very easily. In fact, you're almost prevented from doing that. And that then devastates the whole community. And this is part of the reason that I came forward with one bill. If you are a geek in terms of a wonk in terms of bills and want to look it up, you can look up House Bill 3372. I came forward with that bill. Well, it wasn't going very far, but I was able to talk with my colleagues in the legislature, and Jennifer Williamson and Ann Leininger in particular said, well, we can probably fold those ideas into the large marijuana bills. There were 3 of them, and we did. Now, we didn't get everything we wanted. We don't have the wave of the magic wand and say everything's expunged. A number of issues came to bear there. One of the basic ones is that in many cases, folks were not just arrested for one situation. And there were also some folks who had violent offenses attached to their marijuana conviction. So you had to be able to deal with a number of those issues. What we came up with is a relatively simple approach. And if you want to look up, again, House Bill 3400, you can find out that approach. It's on, I think, page 120, no, it's section 129 on page 72. And it basically says, when a person's convicted of a marijuana offense based on conduct that occurs before the effective date of this act, files a motion for a court order setting aside the conviction, the court shall consider the offense to be classified under another ordinance, another ORS rather, if the conduct occurred on or after the effective date of this act, or if the offense is no longer a crime, the court shall consider the offense to be classified as a Class C misdemeanor when determining whether the person is eligible. That means that a person who was convicted of a crime, regarding marijuana, will no longer have to wait 10 years to look for expunction. They will be able to go in 3 years for that. Now that doesn't mean it's waived immediately, but they will also have to go to the court and ask for that expunction. That means a process. It's not as simple, as quick as I wanted, and we don't have the ability that the president had to do 49 convictions or to toss out those things today or yesterday. But we do have the ability to begin a process so that people can have that expunction. I'm very pleased to be able to say that we managed to get something accomplished on that. That's what we did. Now, I should tell you that this is probably the most publicly known bill for me. I presented it. We presented it a little late in the session, but we presented it. And I cannot go to Fred Meyer or Safeway or New Seasons without someone coming up and talking with me about this bill. And sometimes 2 or 3 people in the same night, which is why it takes me an hour to go to Fred Meyer, Safeway, or New Seasons, no matter what time of the day or night. Because people either have personally been affected by it, or they have relatives who have been affected by it. This is the kind of thing that we can get accomplished. And I want to be able to do more in the next session, or at least certainly in the next session and a half or whatever. But we're going to try to continue this effort, because we really do, I think this helps us turn the corner on the communities who we have folks who are going to make millions and millions of dollars, if I can do a Carl Sagan there, and actually manage to make a lot of money in selling thousands of times the amount that folks who now have convictions have. And those folks with the convictions will have difficulty getting any kind of business going. They were entrepreneurs in the first place, so let's be real clear about that. And we should be trying to figure out how we deal with that. But they are, the other folks, and I'll be very blunt about this, they don't look like them.
Right.
We are talking about black folks who have convictions, and white folks who are going to make a lot of money. I have 6 different dispensaries within about 6 blocks of my house, down at the Lloyd Center area. And it's pretty astounding. But I know, looking at who owns those dispensaries, they don't look like the folks who have convictions for very small amounts of marijuana. We need to be able to address that. That's what I'm trying to do, and we'll try to keep going on it. Thank you.
Very good. Can you hear me? Can you hear me in the back? Oh, okay. I'm not controlling the sound, so. But you can hear me in the back, can't you? No? Where's the AV people?
No, do this.
Oh, okay, here, we'll try his. How's that? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, here we go. My name is Roy J., and first of all, show of hands, how many people have ever heard of the program Project Clean Slate? Well, that's half the room right there. Let me tell you, to dovetail off of Representative Frederick's comments about how he has led his legislation past the finish line, back in 2005, I had what was called a brain fart in the middle of the night. Now that was because, I'm a businessman, and I was trying to figure out how I could hire not only just more African American people, but more people in some of these businesses that we were running, or my partners were running, and we ran against the same problem over and over and over again. We like to hire you, you look great, you got a great personality, I know you can work with customers, but by the time the insurance company would run you, you didn't have a driver's license, you owed all these fines, you had some kind of convictions, and it seems like nobody ever wanted to give them a second chance for them to get started. There's a silver lining at the end of this, because we got I just happened to run into some people at night that went through the program. But back in 2005, the African American Chamber started this program, which I call Project Clean Slate. Nobody told me no. What happened is that between the district attorney's office, the police department, community corrections, welfare, everybody else all came to the table, and we had a one-time only event at Portland Community College over in Northeast Portland. So we literally took Multnomah County Courthouse and moved it over to Portland Community College for a one-time only thing, where we had judges, baby DAs, sheriff's office, everybody. I think, were you there at the time? Oh, yeah, you was there. We anticipated 500 people. We were prepared to take care of and help 500 people move on with their life. We got there, and we were there all day with no food, no water, and 3,000 people showed up. Let me repeat, 3,000. 3,000. Everybody from West Lynn to Merrillhurst to North Portland to the West Hills, and every place else, because they all had an issue, or they all had a family member that had an issue. Some people didn't want to admit it, but we've got people driving around here with no driver's license. They're trying to get back and forth to work. They're trying to take care of their kids, and nobody seems to have wanted to help But we put together this plan. We, me, and everybody else. It wasn't just me. We had a lot of partners, and that's the good thing about Portland, because we had partnerships. Everybody else was thinking it's all about them, but we had folks coming together, and everybody's trying to put together the deal to try and see if we can help. And so we had people from Multnomah County, the judges. Some of them got off vacation, came back early, and we processed roughly that day around 800 people. That actually showed up and went through the program. And it was not basically, bless you, Lou, we're going to give you back your driver's license so you can go back and do the same dumb stuff again. No, what we had a plan was that we're going to help educate you on how to be able to open up the door so you can go and become, and I'm not just saying, it wasn't Lou. Lou wasn't in line. Lou was there to help. Okay. But it was a growing experience, because what we realized was that at the end of 17 hours, I mean, we were down there early. I think they carried me to the car, and we realized this was bigger than what anybody had even anticipated. We had people that was very thankful, and when you have Crips and Bloods sitting this close to each other for 10 hours in line next to a white woman from Lake Oswego wearing $300 Ferragamo shoes, and everybody's getting along because they all had one thing in mind. I need to get my driver's license back. I need to get some of this stuff expunged so I can go on and get a job. Because nobody wants to be on Section 8 living, as we say in our Northeast vernacular, in their baby mama house down in the basement forever, and when you're 37 years old. So there was job opportunities, and it just so happened this was the right time, this is the right place, and also because it was Portland, Oregon. This was not some other city where everybody was fighting amongst themselves. We had a district attorney that knew how to sort of move this thing forward. So that's how Project Clean Slate started. And we figured, well, we had more people that we could accommodate. Let's do Clean Slate 2. Then we figured, gosh, we got more people than ever. So just to fast forward, that was July 9, 2005. We are now celebrating our 10th year. Our 10th year this year, where we've had literally thousands of people go through our doors, whether it been for driver's license expungements, credit assistance, trying to get them back on track. For those of you that watch the news carefully, you've seen that we've had, in fact, I think you've seen several times where we've had people that had outstanding warrants that have traveled all the way across country on their own to come back to Portland to surrender and try and get their life back on track. So how does this equate to marijuana? Well, there's a lot of things, because like Lou says, marijuana was a low-level crime that some people says, oh, well, I can live with it, live without it. But as we educate people and we understand, that's their own personal choice. But when you try and go find a job and you don't realize that where you live and your particular lifestyles in this may also affect your job, it may affect your car insurance. We've had insurance experts come in and tell you, sure, you can go ahead and do whatever that you want, but guess what? Progressive is going to charge you about 22% more because you can't pass this test, you can't pass this test. And people think, well, it's no big deal. So there's some down consequences to this. Some people say, well, I enjoy it at home and so forth. But these companies nowadays, they're really starting to look at, is there an upside to this as far as trying to be a promotion, getting a promotion and things of that nature. So I have, in fact, to my left, Jerry. I'm gonna have Jerry come up here for a quick second. So I saw this gentleman. No. But Jerry is just a graduate.
No, the video's not.
Oh, the video. Okay, we're gonna show the video.
No, it's not working.
It's not working. Okay, so now Jerry is the video then. Okay, Jerry. In 2 minutes, and I've known Jerry. How long have I known you?
About 40, 50 years.
40, 50 years. Tell him your story. I just saw him when I walked in. We were hugging and we were crying.
My grandson sent me a text
Jerry,
saying,
act like a rock star.
Jerry can always act like a rock star.
my grandson sent me a text says Roy J is going to be here. I haven't seen Roy in 10, 15 years, right? Clean Slate. I was in line in Clean Slate. He said it was 3,000 people. No, it had to be 5,000 to 10,000 people. I was in line with no water, right? So I know. Clean Slate. Well, as a child, we act like a child. And then we become a grown man or a grown woman. We change our childish ways. Clean Slate gives so many people a second chance. It gave me a second chance. I'm 66 years old now. I just retired from the waterfront. with retirement and Social Security. Right? Labor. I've been involved in labor for 32 years. Clean Slate gave me a chance to reconcile my lifestyle. Because back then, I had 2 daughters, single parent. My children was going to eat, hook or crook. And that's the way people are now. They're looking for jobs, but no one wants to hire them or no one wants to help them. Clean Slate have saved so many people. I went to the courthouse one time, I don't know if Roy remember. I went to a graduation, it was in the paper. I just sat. The people that I knew was drug addicts, was clean. Standing in front of the judge, and the judge, I think, gave them a piece of paper. They wasn't being sentenced, they wasn't going to jail, they was getting freedom in their hand.
They're filming.
They can't
So-
hear you at the back.
Yeah.
So Clean Slate, if you can sponsor it, if you can help Clean Slate, I know. And the marijuana thing, right on. I don't smoke it, but right on.
I think this was not staged. I happened to be walking in, I saw him, and I was out there, and I remember when Jerry graduated, and I'm not even going to what Jerry used to do, but Jerry has went full circle and contributed to this community. We sat in North Portland in a car blocking the intersection. I was in tears because he had his daughter with him. He was going to see his son. This is, I'm not saying that this is, that we're the end all know all, but when you got people that can connect with other folks in the community where nobody else can, because we had the common denominator. I need to get my driver's license back, but also you're going to be paying child support. You're going to take care of your kids. You're going to do all the rest of the things, and we're going to try and show you a path. Sometimes it's a little bit longer, but at the same time, we want people to be a productive citizen thing. I can't read this because my glasses are all foggied up. I sent it to Lou, I think, yesterday, because we got some testimony from some young man who had went through this program just like Jerry, like three years ago, and. In fact, I'm going to read you the first paragraph because it says, when I was a teenager, I started smoking pot. End of story right there, okay? When I started smoking pot, and then it was the gateway drug. I should have listened. I came from a 2-parent family. Dad worked and Mom stayed at home and took care of us at the age of 34. I was a meth addict and homeless person. And in 2009, I was incarcerated for the violation of a restraining order. This was not my first time in jail. After 50-some days of waiting in court, I finally made my big day. But I had a huge revelation that was 90% of Multnomah County inmates that were on probation violations, and some of them took them 10 years to get off of 1-year probation. He was just in there for just minor crimes. 10 years to get off of 1-year probation. He goes on to talk about how he not only changed, he had a religious experience, but also between Transitions Projects and Project Clean Slate, and him doing some other things. He wasn't just drinking our Kool-Aid, he was drinking somebody else's Kool-Aid. But now he's got a family, he's changed his whole life, he's involved with this church. And this is the type of stuff that we see all the time. So as we, we're gonna open it up for questions, I guess, at some point in time, but most of you already know somebody that's been in this program, somebody that's waiting to get into this program. The program, when we travel all over the country, in fact, I'm headed tonight to Florida because Florida is now looking at what Portland has been doing. And people, the first time we were on the road and we were in Oakland, people said, why are they doing it in Portland? Because, they don't have a lot of black people there. And I said, well, this program wasn't started because of black people, it was because we had a community need. And they could not understand how you could get somebody from the DA's office, the police department, the sheriff's office, child support, and DHS and everybody else to be at the same table at the same time, and everybody left their egos out in the parking lot. And that's how we were able to make this thing run, also because of the fact that we were running it, and we're not government employees, so we're working 24/7, morning, noon, and night, and that's how we happened to run across Representative Fredericks and Representative Shields. because we were flat, broke, busted, disgusted, everything we had spent, retirement, everything else to keep a program going, and we had no idea where the next dollar was coming from. I'm borrowing money left and right thing, but I saw people, like Lou says, he sees people on the street. I see people at Walgreens, at Costco, every place else, and the first thing they're showing me is that I got a driver's license, I've got my family back, I got a job, I have a CDL, I'm going here and there, and they understand the importance of when you go to apply for a job, you gotta take that UA. You can't have anything in your system, because otherwise they're going to give the job to them, or they're going to give the job to somebody else over there. So everybody, some people say, well, that doesn't happen in my family. Well, yes, it does. You know, you got a relative or somebody, direct relative, somebody in our neighborhood, it's always Pookie and Ray Ray. For those of you who don't know who Pookie and Ray Ray is, we got somebody in the back, we'll translate for you later. But we've always got somebody that we also have to help out, because we never give up on anybody, because we live in Portland. So hopefully other cities are now going to sort of start drinking the Kool-Aid, because, you know, after 10 years, everybody's saying it's not going to work. No, why are you doing this? And some people thought, well, we're doing this because we're just going to give them back a driver's license. But that was not necessarily the case. You were doing community service, I think, with Jerry and some of the rest of the folks out there. Everybody was doing some other types of community service to pay off Multnomah County for the traffic fines that the county agencies were never, ever going to collect. I mean, you know, right now, you know, Multnomah County Judge Jones said on tape there was like $190 million that was never going to be collected, issued writs and garnishments and stuff like that to folks that are living in the cash society. All they want to do is get a driver's license so they can drive legally instead of having cars towed and things of that nature. So we had them do everything, including community service, working at food banks, working at churches. We had, I got real creative about some community service where we knew the father had not been involved with the kids for years. And part of the community service, with the help of the court, was that you're going to go to every PTA meeting for the next 6 months, 12 months. You're going to be involved with your kids. If you can go to the game, play, guess what? You're going to show up at that kid's school, and they don't even know that you're under some type of quote-unquote court order. And these kids are saying, Daddy, what are you doing here? Because I love you.
That's right.
And also, I'm getting community service to get my life back too. But also, part of the deal is that everybody that's going through this, and Representative Frederick knows, everybody that goes through Project Clean Slate must have a child support order, a payment plan with child support, because these are some of the same people that child support has been chasing for the past 3 or 4, 5, 10 years and never been able to collect a dime. So for you single ladies that have been raising those kids, 3 and 4 kids, and grandmothers, can I get an amen for the guys that are now paying? It's that simple. We have something that they want, and this works both ways, both men and women. We have folks women that have not paid their child support, and they're entering into payment arrangements, because that's the only way they can get a license. If you're any type of professional in Oregon, you can't get a professional license if you owe back child support. And you can run, you can hide, you can be in Wisconsin, and that's why some of these fugitives came back to Portland, because they realized, gosh, I can't even change my life because I owe stuff in Oregon. And child support says, well, something is better than nothing. Let's work out a payment arrangement. As long as you keep your word and you start paying, then we're going to help you go to the next level. So, how am I doing so far? Okay. So I'm finished with I wish the video would have worked, but evidently it doesn't. The video is only a 9-minute video, but it's powerful. It tells you stories about other folks, because we don't use actors in any of this. We've got all these folks that have been working in the background. You know, we do this 24/7. You know, we have to carry phones with us at all times. You know, that's just the way it is. I mean, this is not really what we signed up for. But, you know, at the end of the day, when you see somebody's life changing, somebody's getting a job, somebody's trying to clean themselves up and going through drug rehab and things of that nature, then it's all worth it. We're sort of somebody told me one time, we're the artery to all these other community programs, you know, whether it be trade programs and things of that nature, because if you spend all this money to have somebody rehabilitated and they don't have a driver's license, they don't have the stuff behind them, then they're back to square one again. So we're trying to take care of that in our own little way, and people are looking at Portland and Oregon and saying, how are you guys doing it? So we're looking at Miami, Wisconsin is already getting ready to get on board, and so that's where we're going to expand and do some things. So thank you for your time.
Okay, some of you might be wondering, well, why is Roy J here? His program is more with driver's license and child support, because whether he knows it or not, marijuana is getting ready to be added to his program. And this is part of what happens in changing people's lives. I was just speaking to someone recently who said marijuana has ruined more people's lives than can be told, and very few of them were addicted. And the bottom line is that, how many of you are familiar with the school to prison pipeline? How many of you are familiar with the prison industrial complex? That's what this is about. The war on crime, the war on drugs that originally started, that was the beginning of it. And it really started, and Lou and Roy can tell you this, it really started when we were kids. When James Brown, how many of y'all remember James Brown, had the nerve to say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. And black folks, poor folks, started acting like, I'm black, I'm proud. And acting a different way. And the government said, oh no, we cannot have this. We need to fix this up. So they changed a whole lot of laws. They changed most people in the poor communities, and there are more poor white people on welfare than there are people of color. And so most people ended up they got their funds taken away. They changed it. You notice they used to call it welfare, and then they changed it to AFDC, Aid to Families for Dependent Children, which meant that the men were no longer able to receive any aid, so it caused the breakup of the black family. When I grew up as a kid, when Roy was here, Lou, everybody looked like their mama and daddy. Nowadays, you got 6 kids and they all look different, because there are different parents involved. And so relationships, the black community, the poor community changed. The black community changed specifically because that's where it was focused. White families who were poor were able to continue on being families, but black families were not. And things were criminalized. You couldn't have a telephone, you couldn't have cigarettes, you couldn't have any beer. They'd come through, check the drawers, check everything. You know, if your clothes came from a certain community, you know, from a certain store, you lost your AFDC grant. And I know this for a fact because my folks owned a grocery store in the black community. And we'd see these social workers coming through. And people were in panics. You know, you couldn't have a telephone. I mean, I know more people's business than I want to know about because they came in to use the payphone. So it was very dehumanizing and it was very embarrassing. But that was all part of the plan. And then they brought in weed. Weed wasn't a big thing in this when I was a kid. I mean, I heard of reefer, but very few people knew anything about weed or reefer. All of these things happen all of a sudden. So this is all interconnected, and now it's gotten so good. And you know, America's about business, and as Roy said, those folks were business people. So now it has grown. We have the prison industrial complex, and how dare Oregon vote to decriminalize marijuana? Because now you're messing with money. Because each one of those prisoners is worth a certain amount of money. So, what is it, 42? I heard somebody say 40 grand. 40 grand. Wow. A year or in a year? I wish I could have had 40 grand to educate a child. Mm-hmm. But that's the point, is that this is all a scam. And this, you know, you go back to, what is this about? It's about class, it's about race, it's about money, bottom line. And until we all get together and say we're not going to do this anymore, it's going to continue. Now we're decriminalizing marijuana. There will be something else, don't worry. But it takes us being involved to change this. I wanted to share that with you because sometimes we don't have the background to understand where some of the issues are. And one of the things that Roy alluded to is that if a person has skills, if they're not allowed to use those skills in a legitimate way, and they need to support their family, they will find an illegitimate way to do that. And I want you to think about something. This will blow your mind when you just stop and chew on this a minute. 90% of the circumstances in our lives are man-made. Think about that. 90% of the circumstances in your life are man-made. This is not part of the natural world. So if man made it, then man can change it. So, if you have some questions, and I'm sure there are plenty of them, please line up over here, and we have about 15 minutes that we can do Q&A, and then we'll go into our small group discussion. So if there are any people who have questions, please come up here and ask your question. Keep it short. Y'all don't have no questions?
As they say on television, come on down.
I'm telling you, Lou has something he wants to say.
Yeah, a couple of things. One is, first of all, the good news is for Oregon, we don't have private prisons here.
Right.
Okay, that was something it really helps those places that do, not only resistant to change, but if you saw in the Pennsylvania situation, you have judges that were being corrupt and in fact putting kids in prison and getting a kickback from doing that. Now that judge is presently going to be in prison right now too, but it took the destruction of hundreds of young people because of that. And that's one of the issues that we have managed to not allow to take place in Oregon. And secondly, one of the other bills that we passed in this legislative session bans the box. It basically says that on employment applications, you can't ask about convictions or arrests. Now, you can ask that after you talk with someone, but you can't just do that as a screening process on the application. Yes, there are certain folks, if you've had something where you've managed to abscond with funds from a bank, you don't want to have somebody who's going to be doing it, but you ask them that question after that. You don't have that as a box that you check. That's a huge change, and that will make a difference, we hope, as well. And let me just, frankly, those two issues are important. Legislative, as much as people use as a general sort of concept that the government isn't working, et cetera, it is. You're the government. You've got to make sure that people know what's supposed to happen. And people have come to me, as I said, not only in grocery stores, but they come to me on a regular basis. And I have a monthly chat with Lou at 17th and Northeast Broadway at the Broadway Grill. And we had about 30 people there last Saturday. And they come and they talk and ask questions. And you're in District 43 right now. So the folks from this district are the ones who come, but we also have people coming in. We had folks from Hillsborough and Gresham and other places. This is how you do it. You come in and you talk with folks. And in Oregon, you have the ability to actually talk with those folks. You don't have to put down 20 grand in order to do that. Now, I wouldn't mind 20 grand, but you don't have to do that. That's a big difference from our state versus Massachusetts or Georgia or Louisiana or Illinois. It's a huge difference. We have people who are approachable, and it's also a difference that shows up when you are able to pass a ban the box situation, an expungement situation, and to make sure that we do not have for-profit prisons.
Let me throw something in here because I know there's a lot of effort in ban the box because it's not just in Oregon or Portland, it's in other states, but ban the box is basically the Band-Aid, because what they really need is to have these convictions and these arrest records expunged, because once the employer goes through and he wants to bring in X number of minorities to apply for a job, apply for a position, and they have to go through the process, and in some cases they do what's called selective certification. If I like you, I'm gonna go ahead and hire somebody else over here, but by the way, Lou, I have to go through this, and I don't have to look at this until afterwards, and I'll find a reason to get rid of you, or dismiss you from the final selection. So man in the box, it allows people to get their foot in the door, and that's what we try and teach Project Clean Slate clients. Your attitude determines your altitude on how to be able to get in front of these folks. In fact, these classes that we do, we have professionals that come in and talk to them, but the ultimate is to have it expunged from your record, because that way when you go to apply for a job, the question is, have you ever been arrested or convicted for a crime? And you can legally say no unless you're applying for some high-level federal thing.
There's a question.
Thank you. I was wondering if you're aware of any of the predominantly, white vendors of legalized marijuana supporting any of these bills, doing any advocacy around this issue, or donating money to support folks who are in prison for this?
Constantly aware. They are constantly involved in this. I have folks, I've talked with a number of the different groups, as well as, there are groups that are specifically dealing with medical, and there's groups that are dealing with recreational, and they are very much involved in this. It's not a situation where the white vendors or potential vendors are at all upset about that. They understand the problem. They're trying to find some way to connect. So they've been very, very supportive.
Yeah. Also, let me throw in another 2 cents about this, because this has become big business. July 1st, it was big business. When you read the Wall Street Journal, it was, the Washington Times and stuff like that. This is big business because Oregon is now up there. But the people that are coming and applying, and the money that's coming in, there's coming from Philadelphia, there's coming from Oklahoma. Everybody's just like Denver. They're all coming here, and it's not necessarily the local folks that are going to actually benefit. It's people from out of town that want to get up here and set up these shops. And I don't know if it's going to create jobs for local folks, but I can guarantee we've had calls from folks wanting to offer us money, and our answer is no. We're not interested in that route.
The Washington has their taxes, their first year of taxes ended up being $70 million. So that gives you a sense. And the hedge fund folks and all the other groups that are coming in trying to do whatever they possibly can to make some money, because there are two aspects of this. They know they're going to make a lot of money, and Oregon already has the reputation of having the best pot in the country. So one of my favorite stories is of folks in Klamath Falls. How many of you have been to Klamath Falls? Oh, that's good. Klamath Falls has a number of things that are going for it. One is that it has a huge geothermal capability. Many of in fact, almost all of the buildings downtown are heated using geothermal. Well, geothermal is a really good place to put in a greenhouse. And a number of the business people in Klamath Falls have been talking about putting up greenhouses. They don't have to go that far to find the best pot. It's just on the other side of the Cascades there, right over in Jackson County. So they would very easily be able to find the seeds and be able to plant and grow as much as possible. So they're talking about doing just that. So that's part of what's going on there too.
I wanted to share something with you. As I was listening, I thought about something. And my first thought when they passed the bill and they were doing the news was that, isn't that amazing that all these people of colors, these blacks and Latinos, are using all this dope and are in prison, and these are such scurrilous people, and you know and I know that white people have not been doing that. And I kept wondering, where did all these white folks come from that are selling all of a sudden have businesses. And where are they going to come from? And they know so much about it, and they learn so quickly. And, you know, and how do they get such knowledge? And how do they have a business ready to go? And how do they have a client base just that fast, like overnight? And I'm being facetious, of course. But the bottom line is that they always have been there. They always have been buying and selling marijuana. They just haven't been caught. Or I should say, they haven't been charged. Because many of them have been caught. They haven't been charged. And that's part of systemic racism. And it took me years to figure it out. But all those isms, you know how people get tired, you know, you're a woman, you get tired of people not hiring you. You're a person of color, you get tired of people not hiring you. You have a disability, you get tired of people not hiring you. You know, all these different things that hold you back. Part of what that is elimination of competition. Elimination of competition for goods and services, for jobs, for homes. That's all it is. So think about that. Every dog has his day. And the white dog is having his day now. The black dog had it before. The brown dog had it before. But it's rolling around. It'll come back. But we just have to say, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. We're just going to have everybody having their day. So it's up to us to change that. Now we got some questions. Great.
It's kind of a comment and question, and also I was thinking as you were speaking about the big business and the people hopefully getting out of prison, so, and the white entrepreneurs in the marijuana business now who are anxious to help. So how about a prison to job for the people, because obviously they have a lot of experience, so why not have them be a manager or a, you know, promoter or, you know, public relations or something. I mean, I was wondering if you are able to get those kinds of commitments from the committed new entrepreneurs that are being very successful at a business. So.
It's exactly the kind of thing that I was actually concerned. Actually, you're talking about in terms of retail jobs. I was actually more interested in some of the folks that I know are scientifically based and tell you what the quality is like with just a very little amount of work, but all these time. That is something that we can do. But you know, it is difficult for the government, the state, to say, now we want you to hire these folks in this particular business. That doesn't work quite that way.
Right.
So that's part of the issue. What you want to do is you also want to make sure that they are not excluded from working in that business, and that expungement has an important factor in that. I also should mention, it's also going to be for folks who are under the age of 21 who end up with they end up having actually a 1 year period of time before expungement if they find themselves with that case. That's a different bill altogether, but you should take a look at that. And that was tied, interestingly enough, to how you looked at minor in possession of alcohol. And how we handle that, as well as how we handle the idea that we don't want to have folks just using it as much as possible. Because quite frankly, one of the issues we have with marijuana, and let's be very clear, is that it does have an impact on the developing brain. Okay, that is something we know. So it's not as if to say we want to have kids using marijuana. Because that's a basis, that's something we have a real basis for. So understanding what that's about as well is something that we're talking about.
The other part, the part B to your answer to your question about these, the train has already left the station. You know, they're given licenses. You see these dispensaries being being established with certain guidelines. But Oregon has WorkSource Oregon. They have these through the employment office and things of that nature. You know, creative counselors could be able to put A and B together, and that's not to say to hire everybody that came out of prison, but there's folks out here that know more about marijuana than me and you would ever even know, but they never thought they can get a job. Now it's legal. Well, why don't we put together some of these folks that can go out there and also be able to sell or do whatever that they have to do and have themselves a legitimate job, get some benefits, and go from there. But some of that could be implemented through Oregon's I think it's called WorkSource or something of that nature, where they're trying to place people into legitimate positions.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to piggyback on something that you said, Mr. Roy, about folks being able to come in. So from what I understand is you have to be a resident for 2 years to be able to establish a business in a dispensary. There are 4 licenses that will be available next year, 2016. In October 1st, the medical marijuana will be able to start selling to 21 and over. So that creates somewhat of a concern at this point. But and then what I look at as folks being able, just like they are able to find people on the internet, when they want the new i6 phone, is come in and find people, because we can't have investors from outside, you know, our community come in and invest with somebody that currently already live here. So that's that partnership. And when we talk about banning of the box, that goes with a campaign that we're working on, that I'm working on right now with community members, of getting Oregon to think outside of the box, meaning that we find employers who are willing to hire people and do a screening process for and with them, and then also give them additional training on the job with them with a partnership. So that builds with a lot of what it is that we see within our community and how we can gap loop some of these concerns that have happened over the years with the people that we know have been marginalized, criminalized for these situations. So the investing is going to be something that people are clearly going to be looking in on our community of people, maybe of color or maybe or not, because I was out there the night of marijuana and it was crazy. It was like thousands and thousands of people out there. So, you know, that is what I've been just following along and just checking out what is going on with that, with the bill. Thanks.
Let me just say quickly so that you understand something that's important is that bills start with a communication about a problem. We found we had a bill, but we also had a committee that met almost every night in the legislature, and they were struggling to try to get through all of the various issues. If you look at the bill itself, as I said, I think it's about 84 pages long. Which is a long bill when you think about it. It's trying to address a lot of different things. If you look at but there are actually 3 bills that were directly involved with dealing with the whole Measure 91 issues. It takes a bit to try to work through all that. And there are a couple people, Ann Leininger, if you ever meet her, you need to say congratulations, because the work that she did was rather extraordinary. And she did it with getting people in the room, talking, people who were going to argue about it, and she managed to get 3 bills out that were really extraordinary. I applaud her a great deal because of that. But it's going to take some time. The October date that you're talking about, next year's dates that we're trying to figure out how we work through all these things, not going to be an easy task. It's not going to be a simple sort of pass the wand over and everything works. But we are going to get some things done because people are willing to sit down and work on it. Another question?
Yeah, we're talking about a lot of money here. Sounds like, is Oregon going to be able to charter banks to put the money in? What's going to happen to that money?
Yeah,
The feds won't, you know.
Right. This is part of the issue that we struggle with because it's a federal issue. It's not something that the state can deal with. How do you deal with the money? Now, I see somebody standing up here who may actually have more information about that than I do, but that is something that we are struggling with, how we handle the money, because those dispensaries cannot put that money in banks right now. They can't. They have to have it in cash, which means that they are vulnerable to all sorts of things. That's why you see those dispensaries are not just you go and open the door. You can't just walk in. You have to be buzzed in, and you have to, and then there's always an interior base as well, that you can't just walk in to any place, even inside. They're trying to be very secure, because we don't know how we're going to handle the banking and the cash as well. Now, I'm now real curious about what you want to talk about.
Someone had just mentioned 90% of the factors.
Tell who you are. Come on.
I'm Yhis Johnson, former New Yorker, new to Oregon.
And tell them where you work, 'cause that's important.
I'm from the Department of Justice. But everyone wants to feed it. I don't know what the purpose of that is. I'm talking as a black man in predominantly white Oregon. So where I work, where I'm from, who I work for is irrelevant to my question.
Okay.
My whole point is, as I listen, you hear the semantics. Nobody is talking about black people as owners of dispensaries. We're talking about black people as, let's train them as employees. Let's train them as managers. Let's train them as people who can promote. Are we going to have RFPs for dispensaries? Are we going to be giving points to minority-owned businesses, to women-owned businesses? Is there going to be an effort to allow blacks and browns to get into this market rather than trying to get us out of jail so we can get a job cleaning somebody's floors?
Well, we got two answers here. First of all, I know of at least 4 black groups that have been formed to sell and already have their organization up and running. And so I know of that right now. That's part of it. Secondly, you are dealing. This is an issue that the OLCC has got to deal with, and we have folks on that commission who have been talking and working on this. They understand this as an issue. I agree. We should not be trying to find people who can be employees. We need to have people who are owners.
Right. Okay. Good question. Very good question. You know, Oregon has always been behind the 8 ball when it comes to making sure they're inclusive. They always want to hire somebody to do this and do an outreach and talk to African Americans and Latinos and women and things of that nature, and to empower folks. That's their big thing. We want to empower you. Here's a chance if government moves and they put together an RFP, because I've been on both ends of the sticks of these things in the past, where we made sure that women got contracts and African American, Latinos got contracts, but it's how the RFP is written to make sure there's preference. We give preference for veterans, we give preference. We do this in ODOT all day long for construction. We're doing outreach and things of that nature. So it's how the RFP is written to make sure there's going to be inclusion and partnerships and joint ventures to make sure everybody's going to be able to share the wealth. I agree, a job is not going to get it, but when you own the store and you're sharing part of the profits, like we say, you increase your net worth that way. But very seldom, if you look around, you don't see too many African Americans that really own businesses. They have some type of business. Same thing with Latinos. And for the most part, why is it that our folks, African Americans, everybody always wants to direct us to construction? Nothing wrong with construction. But I didn't go to school to do a hammer and a nail, and neither did you. We were raised a different way. But there's a lot of businesses out there. All these new cottage industries are showing up. But the state, OLCC, if they're going to issue RFPs, they have to make sure those RFPs are specifically set to make sure they're going to be including people of color, and they give points, not just 5 points or 10 points because you just happen to show up at the table. Because this is a multi-billion-dollar business, and I'd like to see, along that same vein, like to see some women-owned dispensaries. Not just all these men that are coming here from God knows where all else. I mean, and my preference, and I'm not on that train, but I would like to see preferences to people that live here in Oregon, period. First and foremost, we're about growing our state and taking care of our own. You know, somebody else comes in here, you know, they'll turn around and sell this stuff off. But that's, you know, I've been down that road, and I've sat in many meetings and tried to make sure that people got some equity in some of these contracts, and that's why, in fact, Portland right now has a minority evaluator program specifically designed to have other folks at the table, especially evaluators that don't necessarily look like the norm. So they've got minorities that sit there as well as mainstream. So no, there's an opportunity, but the train is going to leave real fast. There.
Okay, this is the last question.
Okay.
Walt, you got the last question. Thanks.
So I'm appreciating we're here together, and it's about conversations and dialogue and getting to know each other. And the two of you have been around the block, and my question has to do with differences of ideologies in the political process and communities, and interesting ideas, creative ideas for the right and good thing to happen, and the clashing of ideologies in this process of how we come together to talk about things, to create partnerships that really work together. And your experience of how the partnerships came together, that sounds like a really good thing. And then there's so many experiences where the opposite happens, that are differences politically or whatever get in the way of finding, of conversing and then finding a way to find common ground and that sort of thing. So my question is, like, what's happening in the process, in the world of how we deliberate and come up with these bills? You commended somebody for bridging the differences and being able to make something happen with this bill. So how are we doing on having the right kinds of processes and conversations to, you know, find the right kind of partnerships to make those kinds of ideas happen?
Well, you give me a good chance to do something. There's a legislative representative, a House representative named Andy Olson. He's from Albany. He's a former state police officer, and he is one of the primary reasons that this bill managed to pass. He's a Republican, and we have had conversations, constant conversations, and he helped work this and walk this through, because it wasn't an ideological situation for him. It was, he had seen an awful lot of folks damaged by, well, as we talked about it, the primary issue that we talked about was the expungement. He had seen an awful lot of folks damaged, and he said, enough. We've got to find some way to deal with the adults and with the young people on this situation. It was really very good. That also was the case. I mean, when you look at this did not pass on a very narrow margin. This passed with a lot of Republicans and Democrats voting for it. And it also didn't pass on an ideological situation. You also had an awful lot. We have 6 to 8, I think it's now 7 actually, 7 people who have law enforcement experience who are legislators. And you'll find that they voted different ways on this, but most of them voted to deal with expungement. And so we had a lot of discussion. It did not come by way of just in an easy fashion. It came by way of talking about what we really needed to see happen for the people of Oregon. And it came by talking about some of the issues. Now, you know, it's not as if, I always have to bring this joke in, but it's the truth. You know, I am the Black Caucus in the Oregon House. So they were not necessarily talking about, you know, helping the Black Caucus there. I was able to bring that point forward and talk about the marginalized communities, but also especially the Black community, and they understood that. It was we had a really good support for this, and I think we can continue to, but we need to take those next steps, things that other people are talking about. We have to have those steps so that we're starting to find out where people are actually making some money on this and not just being the employees involved.
You know, and as I've been listening to everybody's comments, and I'm looking at the audience and stuff, and I remember the name of your organization is Race Talks. And you know, this guy here he's a one-man band down there, and it goes to show you when you know how to navigate through everything, you get along with people. You know, he may be the black caucus down there, but you know, I want to publicly thank him for the things that he's doing as far as bringing folks together, because you know, and he doesn't get a lot of accolades. A lot of I keep telling him, I said, man, look, you know, you gotta get yourself a better job or something like that, because you get beat up all the time. But when you stop and think about it, in some states and some cities that I've been to, you've got folks fighting amongst themselves. They would never be able to get anything like this done. There's never a group like this coming together where people from black communities, white communities, and they want to be able to connect. It's always been about us versus them. Oh, this and this and this. Well, guess what? This is 2015, and you guys should be applauded for being here, because you're here to learn, we're here to learn, and nobody here is an expert, but guess what? We're on that little path of us trying to make sure we're going to make this community a little bit better. So Lou, thank you kindly.
Okay. And I just got a note from Sue Hagmeyer letting me know that the bill passed 54 to 4 in the House, and in the Senate it was 24 to 4. Now, you know, those are incredible numbers, but it did not just squeak by. These are issues that are clearly important to a lot of the community, and they understood that.
Which bill was that?
3,400.
No.
So, no, not ban the box. This is the marijuana bill, the large marijuana bill.
All right, thank you very much. Let's hear it for our speakers. So we have some questions. If you look on the back of your evaluation, there is a series of questions. There are 5 questions, and they're in yellow. And it says, at the top, it says, if you don't have a facilitator. But we just happen to have a bunch of facilitators. So would the facilitators please raise your hand? Okay, and so let's make sure that there's a facilitator at every table, okay? If there is no facilitator at your table, please raise your hand. Okay, you folks right there don't have a facilitator. No, I mean right here. Oh, Jiro, okay. Anybody else?
We have a facilitator, but we have some more brown folks over here.
Well, I don't know how to tell you this. There aren't a whole lot of brown folks or any color folks in here. So we have to do what we work with. Well,
if anyone wants to join us.
Well, brother, you know how it is. Sometimes we have to represent the whole group. So you might just be representing tonight, okay? And if you don't smoke, sorry. So anyway, all right, so we are going to go ahead and talk. We had a lot of questions and a lot of comment, and we will get back together in about half an hour. You do not have to answer these questions. You do not have to answer all of them. You can answer 1 or 2 or none of them. What you want to discuss is up to you. The point is to just talk. So, we look forward to seeing you next month, August 11th at McMiniman's. And in September, we will, the 11th is Unnatural Causes, and Leslie Gregory will be speaking. She left. And August 11th is Unnatural Causes here. And then in September, we will be doing the rise of hate crimes in the USA, Charlotte and beyond, and also doing one of the community police forums. So we will get more advertisement out on that. Thank you so much for coming, and good night.